Is it recorded? Am I sure? Is it recording? Oh, yes, it is recording. Hey guys, you're welcome to Kojo in the Pod. In this video, I'm going to talk about how I began my podcast journey. Many people have been asking me how I started this journey. Why did I start this journey? What is the end goal with this journey? And it just makes a lot of sense for me to address these questions in a timely manner. So how did I start my podcast journey? In 2017, 2018, I was in the University of Virginia studying biology, and I was on my way to class. I don't remember the exact class I was going to, but I remember that I was on my way to class in the bus listening to a podcast by Gary Vaynerchuk, popularly known as Gary V. I believe he was talking about following your passion or following your dreams, something in that lines. And I was listening to him the whole time, and he said something and that stood out to me. He said that if there's something that you enjoy doing and you know that you would wake up early in the morning to do it without any regret, then that is your passion. That is what you love to do. Go for it and do it. And I sat down and I was thinking, as I was listening, I was like, what is one thing about me that I enjoy doing regardless of where I am? If I'm sleeping, I wake up. What is one thing I like to do? I love to do. And just having the conversations, talking and asking questions and just being curious. And I think that brought my attention to starting a podcast. Now, you may also ask, what resources or tools do you use to start your podcast? I'll be honest. The one thing that I would highly recommend everybody to do is the use of your phone. Use your phone, people. Your phone is...
You'll need to unlock your iPhone first.
Sorry about that. Your phone is everything you need to start anything in this world. Why do I say that? Once you have access to the internet, once you have access to YouTube, once you have access to Google, you have everything at your disposal. Use it. So I realized, okay, podcast is one thing I want to venture into. How do I go about it? So I went on Google. I researched podcast. What is a podcast? How can I learn about podcasting? I went on YouTube. I went to Gary V's channel. I learned a lot. I watched a lot of film, a lot of videos. When I say a lot, it was like my everyday breakfast. I would wake up, watch Gary V, wake up, listen to his podcast, figure out how he, has people on his podcast, the conversations, what he says, how I can apply it in my podcast. All of these things were things I was doing from that timeline, right? And I said to myself, all right, now it's time for me to start my podcast. So I got my research, I did everything I had to do. Then I found out about Anchor.fm, which popularly is now known as Spotify for podcasters. So I signed up using my Apple ID. I created an account, and then next thing you know, the option is record a podcast or record something. Now, I didn't have the best of the cameras. I didn't have the best of the lights. I didn't have the best of the microphones. I didn't have that. All I had was my phone. So I literally would go to my voice memo. I remember waking up 2-3 a.m. in the morning, and I said to myself, let's record something. And I just hit record, and I said what I had to say, and then I sent the file to Anchor, my Anchor account. And then I already created my Spotify account and my Apple account to link it to my podcast. So as we speak right now, I have a Spotify account and I have a Apple podcast as well. So I have both. I have Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So that is how I distribute most of my audio files too, right? I mean, there are other options like Google, there are other options like Audio Mac and other things, but I chose to go with Apple and Spotify. So that was one thing. But let me go back a little bit. Now, with the microphones, I would hats off to this man who showed me the right equipment to use, Eric Williams. If you're listening, thank you so much for being an impact in my life. I went to his office. He was my AV supervisor when I was working, audio visual supervisor. So I went to him and I asked him, Eric, I want to start a podcast. Is there a microphone that you can recommend that I can use? And he said, Snowball Ice. And I said, all right, cool. So I had some money whilst I was working in school. So I bought my first microphone, Snowball Ice. So I connected the dongle. It comes with a dongle and a USB. So I connected it to my phone and I recorded directly, not in a sense of directly to my voice memo, but it was directly on the microphone, and then it would transfer on my phone and I would send out the audio to Spotify and Apple. So I was doing that for some time. And then I also transitioned from that monologue, because if you're just speaking to yourself, it's called a monologue. So I transitioned from a monologue to a dialogue. So I started talking to my coworkers. But before I spoke to my coworkers, or before I even recorded anything, I asked their permission. So if you are listening and you want to start a conversation with anybody, ask their permission first. And that is one thing that I would recommend you guys to do. If you're listening and you want to start a podcast and you want to be a dialogue, please ask their permission first before you do anything. So I asked the permission and I said, I'm recording this conversation. Do you mind? Most of them were like, oh, I don't mind. Let's have a conversation. And I had a ton of conversations and I uploaded them, right? I didn't know how to edit at that point. I didn't know how to do the post-processing. I didn't know all of these things. All I did was I gathered the audio, or I gathered the voice recorded, and then I just uploaded, right? So 2018, 2019, I graduated. So during 2017 to 2019, I was still having conversations with people, audio form, right? So, and I was doing both a dialogue and also a monologue, right? Because not everybody was available all the time. So I would just pick up a topic or a question and I'll just respond to it by just saying what I think about it, and I just post it to my Apple and Spotify podcast. So I was doing that. So 2020, 2021, the pandemic happened. 2 years down the line, I didn't record anything because a lot of things were happening, so I just chose not to record anything, not to do anything. However, there was an app that came up called Clubhouse. So for those who know Clubhouse, yes, you know that it is also like an audio platform where you can talk to variety of people around the world. So I had created a Clubhouse account. I joined a group, and then one friend of mine was like, oh, it's been a while. I heard your podcast. What's going on? And I said, oh, the pandemic has happened and I've not had enough the chance or the motivation to do anything, whatever. So I just chose not to do anything. So she said, why don't you use Clubhouse as a means to start your podcast, like revive it? And I said, oh, wow, that's a great idea. Why not? So I started having conversations one-on-one with people on Clubhouse. So I would record it and then send it to my Apple and Spotify, Spotify podcast. So I did that for some time, and someone asked me, who is this person behind the voice? I want to know the person. And I said to myself, why not transition from audio style to video? So I said, okay, cool. So I had to get comfortable. I had to really get outside my comfort zone by that being said, I started doing IG lives, and I went on Instagram. I did IG live with people that I knew from Clubhouse and people that I knew already, and I think people got to see the face behind the voice, and then I built a community from there. Then I transitioned from Instagram to TikTok, right? TikTok, it took some time. I think TikTok was just recently, 2023, 2024. That's when I started TikTok lives and having conversation with people. So if you look at the journey, it's quite an interesting one. I began just recording on my phone and then just uploading it on Apple and Spotify. And then now I have a YouTube channel where you can see my face, you can see who's speaking, and I'm also here to also let you guys know that if you want to start a podcast, it should not necessarily be only audio. You can also do video if you're comfortable, but I think that it's best to do a video because people get to see who is behind the voice and also, you know, put a face to it, right? So that is how I began my podcast journey. And yes, as I said, I didn't have money then, 2017 to 2018. I didn't have the money to buy the camera, the lights, the microphones, the lenses, and the studio sessions. I didn't have time for that. I didn't have money for that, right? So I just started from my bedroom. It literally was where I started. Sorry, in my bedroom, on my bed. I just hit the record button, and that was it. That was the beginning of Kojo on the Pod. Now, you may ask, why Kojo on the Pod? My name is Kojo, and it just makes sense it to be Kojo on the Podcast. So instead of saying Kojo on the Podcast, Kojo on the Pod. So I said, that's the name I'm going to go with. I didn't have time to brainstorm and change whatever and try to, you know, I just said Kojo on the Pod. That's about it. So if anyone asks me, what is Kojo on the Pod? Kojo on the Pod is a podcast on life and relationships, right? So I talk about anything relating to life, anything related to relationships. It could be financial, mental health, physical health, which is fitness, psychological conversations, talk about relationships, talk about finance, talk about, you know, anything that has to do with life, you know, of course, religion, of course, sex, marital conversations, you know. And recently I always try to have conversations with just men. So I also have a show called the Men's Talk Show, which I'll be bringing on YouTube moving on as time goes on. But it's just, I'm creating spaces for all of these conversations to be had. So why podcast? Why? My main goal is not for the likes or the views or the follows or the shares. My main heart desire is for people to learn something and to grow. And I also want to make an impact in my community, in my African community, not just African community, but in the community as a whole. So if someone is to listen to me today and it's like, oh, I listened to your podcast or I listened to your video and I applied everything you taught me or you said, and this is how it has transformed my life. It changes my life totally for the good. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel proud of how impactful my podcast has been to people. And I've heard testimonies, you know, from people online, in person as well. So I think it's just best to bring it on YouTube as well, to also have conversation with people. I want to hear comments. I want to, you know, interact with you guys, build a community. That's my goal. If it's 2 or 3 people that are listening to me and that want to be part of my community, feel free, reach out to me. Feel free to comment in the comment section and just let's interact, let's talk. You know, I believe in community, I believe in interaction, I believe in getting to know people and networking, right? Now, before I end this video, I want to also touch on some of the challenges that I faced and also what are some of the people that have inspired my journey. The challenges I would say is, for example, I invite a guest to my show and, life happens. They don't show up, right? So that being said, it puts a dent on me, like, okay, this happened and I have to find a way to resolve it. It could be last minute, they didn't show up, and then maybe something happened. So I have to probably make an announcement and say to my audience, hey, this so happened, so you have to postpone it to the next, time, whatever the case is. It happens. Challenges like, let's say, for example, I'm about to record and then my phone dies. These are some of the things that happen, right? Challenges like maybe you think you're recording and then all of a sudden your memory is full. You everything is just gone. Everything that you said in the video, you think that you said is literally gone. So these are some of the challenges that I face. Of course, financially, if you're looking to get certain equipment and certain things, you need money to do that. So sometimes, you have to save up a lot to get what you're looking for. So again, I would plead with everybody listening that it shouldn't be something that holds you back. If it's something that you want to do, start somewhere, right? I started with my phone, and that's how this whole thing sprung. So if you're listening, don't stop because you don't have the means for it. Start somewhere. You can just go on IG Live, record yourself, say something, and then start. And don't think too loud. Don't think too much. Don't overthink it. I think people overthink starting something. If you want to start a podcast, have a plan. What is the name of your podcast? What's your niche? Why do you want to do this? Who are the people you want to bring on your show? What is your ultimate goal, right? And I'm telling you, of course, the journey is not going to be smooth. You're going to have some rocky times. You're going to have some adventurous moments, but you still have to push on because you are trying to get to the destination, right? So I always encourage people that if you want to start a podcast, just start it. And as time goes on, you begin to learn more about yourself, about what you're doing, about your craft, about your industry. And also I will tell you again, listen to a ton of podcasts. Listen to a ton of it. It might not be your forte, it might not be something you like, but just listen to it. Watch how people have conversations, their style of conversations, how they interact with people. Watch all these things and then adjust it to who you are, your personality, right? I'm not saying that be like them, right? I was watching a lot of Gary Vee, and man, I'm telling you, this man is a versatile person. Like, there's a lot to learn from him. You get to watch how he talks, how he interacts with people. It's just amazing. I know one day I'll get to meet him, right? One day I will get to meet him. I also love to watch David Letterman. If you know David Letterman, I love his style of interviews. Amazing. He sits down with his guests. He's asking the controversial questions, the tough questions, and I just love it. Like, I can mention a number of people that I listen to, but if you get to know who I am, you realize that my style of conversations varies because of what I listen to and how I also try to get answers from people or try to get people out of their comfort zones, right? So again, you are welcome to Kojo on the Pod. And as I said earlier, there's a podcast on life and relationships. So if you want to be part of my community, if you want to join this community, feel free, reach out to me. Send me a message, in the comment section. I'll respond. I'm going to be responding to most of the comments. And if you have any suggestions, anything, please let me know. That being said, thank you so much for subscribing and following. Take care and God bless you. See you in the next video.